Hey, Exes, today we have a really special guest on. Her name is Rachel Duck, and she helps single moms and divorcees get back up on their feet financially. For all you mamas out there that don't know how to invest or have your money work for you, this is an episode you're not going to want to miss. Rachel, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm super excited. Thanks for having me on.
So, first and foremost, I would love for you to let the audience know what your why is on wanting to become more financially involved with women that need that guidance and that support. Is it a personal story or someone close to you went through a divorce and needed financial guidance? What's your why?
It's both. So yeah, my big why overall in my life, I kind of a couple years ago was like looking at what do I want out of my life, and it's really I have four words. So it's abundance, freedom, legacy, and generosity. And that's what, when you're like at your deathbed, how do you want to be remembered? If somebody said even one of those words, or especially all four of them, I would be really happy. But I went through a divorce 6 years ago. And walking out of that, just trying to kind of get myself back on my feet as a newly single mom of three, figuring out what that looked like for me. And then simultaneously having a lot of my girlfriends go through the same situation with everybody's got a different scenario. So some of them came from being stay-at-home moms, or their husbands controlled the finances more, and some of them were more like me, where we had control of our finances to some degree, but there was stability that was just kind of ripped from us unexpectedly.
Right.
Like anybody that goes through a divorce, nobody really gets married thinking, in 7 years I'm going to get divorced. And so my why now with this is just a passion project. I have been involved in real estate for my whole career as a consultant, an investor, and in sales. But this project is really my passion to help moms, single moms, women move from a position of financial insecurity into lives of not just stability, but walking towards financial freedom where they know that they've got that financial base, and now the world opens up in a new way for them to pursue their passions too, because I think that's what we're all supposed to do. And to see women move from that, like, how am I going to pay my bills this month, or thinking in that perspective to, wow, what is the possibility? That's my dream. So I'm excited to talk to you about it. And yeah.
Well, it's amazing. And, you and I spoke off camera for a little bit before starting this interview. And the most amazing thing that you and I have discussed that we have come into contact with in doing our passion work is meeting, other women like ourselves that all we want
Hmm.
to do is help and guide. And I think, you pressing upon the idea of women becoming more involved in the financials, either while they're married, so they know that if God forbid that rainy day comes and they're
Hmm.
having to file for divorce, they're not overwhelmed or intimidated by the unknown because they've been involved in the money talk within their household from, day one. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
what are some suggestions that you would give to, let's say, maybe a stay at home mom or a mom that is bringing in income who is currently still married, but isn't sure where her marriage is going to go and is afraid that if she doesn't figure out what the financials look like in her household, she doesn't know whether she should stay or leave?
Yeah, and I think that's the scariest position, right? I mean, I don't want to come at any of this with any sort of anti-marriage. I'm certainly not anti-marriage in any way.
Same.
But the reality is that you don't know always, and whether or not you stay in your marriage or not, you having that awareness is a safety net for yourself. And I've talking to my daughter about it too. I would love for my daughter or my friends to have a marriage that lasts and work. And if that means that you stay at home with your kids and you have a great husband providing, that's wonderful. But it doesn't remove the responsibility of you to take ownership of your finances, just in case, for anything, just for knowledge. It would make your marriage better, but if anything happens, to be aware, because that's a scary position. And you think of that ideal marriage where the from the 50s, right, where the husband's working and the mom's with the kids, and it's so great. And yeah, it's great until it's not, and she's
Right.
stuck and
Yep.
she's getting abused and she can't leave because she cannot provide for herself. That's a terrifying spot. And a lot of my friends have been in that spot. And so whether you're married or, single or divorced, having ownership of your finances is your responsibility. And I think whether, if you're married, you and your husband should be talking about that. And if you're in a situation where that's not a dialogue, obviously that's a unhealthy situation. Um, but I think awareness is the start. So part of knowing what's going on is knowing what you're spending, knowing what your assets are. So getting a clear picture on every single account. And this is the same advice if you were going to get a divorce attorney would tell you as well. Like you need an inventory and you should start that inventory long before or even if divorce ever happens, just so you know. So you know what accounts you have, what your net worth as a family is, what part of that is community property, what part is your own, what your expenses are. So you just and I'm doing this with my community group now. No matter where you are, a lot of us lose sight of how much we're actually spending or what categories they're in. So knowing what that actual picture is, and knowing what your income is, what opportunities you might have to grow that a little bit on the side if you are in that situation where I'm not sure where this is going, I need to create more margin for myself. Looking into how you could do that while you're still married or while you're stepping into being a single mom. But I think awareness is key. You have to know what you're dealing with.
It is. And so let's say, to the women that just maybe finalize their divorces and they have, all the financials divvied out. They know exactly what their child support's going to be and their alimony. And they want to get on a budget. What are some steps, which I'm sure you discussed in your book, which I'll have you
Mhm.
talk about a little bit later on because that's amazing. What are some steps, baby steps that they can take in regards to having their money work for them?
Yeah. So what I walk through with women is it's a 7-step process. So it's sequential. And I think, while I love investing, you don't jump right to investing to making your money actually work for you if you don't have a solid base. And everyone's going to come out in a different position so they can kind of figure out where they are. The first step we work on is less tangible, it's mindset. And I think this is because I experienced this, and I don't know if you had the same experience, but coming out of divorce, whether or not I would admit it, I had this victim mindset to some degree where if something happened that had nothing to do with my ex-husband, in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm blaming him, or like the fridge goes out. It's like, oh, he had only, and then it just spirals to this someone else's problem. It's if he had only been here, this would be easier. And um, I had a real problem with the term single mom. It kind of made me feel like a victim too. And so stepping out of that, we kind of walk through how you flip the script mentally around money so that instead of that scarcity script, I call them abundance affirmations, where you're taking ownership because maybe you are a victim. A lot of people have walked through horrible things, and that's not to downplay that, but it doesn't help you to sit in it, right? So the only thing you can control is yourself. So you take ownership, you move forward. And then the next thing I like everyone to do is get clarity on where they want to go. So I call this the financial freedom number, and it's math, which I like math. It's a lot easier than relationships.
Girl,
So
I'm glad you like math. I can't stand it. That is not my strongest suit. I would say I did much better in English class.
oh gosh, I'm like, math is so simple. And that's why I like finances and money. I don't mean to demean it saying money's easy, but it's easy from the perspective in my mind that you can figure it out, you can plan, you
Right.
can you can calculate versus, like a marriage. To me,
True.
that's a lot harder.
True.
Um, so the financial freedom number, you look at what your expenses are now, what you want or expect them to be in the future, and then what an estimated rate of return based on your risk profile. So we have an assessment on like kind of where you are on risk when you do get into the investing stage. If you're, oh, I'm hesitant to take a lot of risk, or my time frame based on my age, that kind of thing, versus, hey, I'm okay with some riskier investments. And what you look at there is how much capital or equity you need to support your lifestyle with that investment assumption. And the intention there is to say, if that's so, for instance, if it's I need $100,000 a year to support my lifestyle, and I'm going to assume a 4% rate of return to get to 2.5 million in capital, which might seem like a crazy number, or maybe not, depending on where you are.
Right.
But that's kind of your end goal of if I start working towards this, at some point, I will have enough to cover my living experience expenses and I will be financially free. Now that might be a longer or shorter time frame depending on where you are and how much you're willing to risk in when we get to investing. But I like everyone to define that first so you have a clear picture. I when I came out of my divorce, so I've always been in real estate investing, so that's kind of my comfort zone. But I put my financial freedom number on the wall and I was like, all right, now I don't have anyone telling me I can't do this, so I'm going to do it. And I moved my kids and I 8 times, not different schools, but like part of my investment strategy is live in flips and rentals. And so I moved them 8 times within 4 years to kind
Wow.
of accumulate. And it wasn't easy. And but I had this goal. And so that's what I try and tell, the women that I'm talking with is like, what is your goal? And how bad do you want it? Are
Mhm.
you willing to do that? And maybe you're not, and that's okay. Are you willing to give up the car that you're driving now if this is your goal? Are you willing to change your housing if this is your goal? Maybe not, maybe so, but how bad do you want it? Because the next step is after you know where you're at, what first can we look at expense wise on our budgeting before we look at kind of income growth and investing? So you look at your budget compared to where your income is now and what that margin is, and how can we cut that 10% to give you more margin as you're moving forward. And some of the cuts are easy, right? Like, okay, I'll give up, my Starbucks or my Target run. But sometimes it gets harder where it's like, am I willing to give up where I'm living right now? Am I that kind of thing?
Right.
Um, but it depends on how bad you want something and what it is you do want. If your goal is smaller and you can get there without doing that, great. But yeah, just kind of defining it for you. So the first step is knowing where you are, and then when you're creating that budget, I like to call them phase budgets with 10% cuts depending on how far you need to go. So the first one is typically pretty easy. Like, okay, I'm going to track my expenses for 30 days. Now I'm going to cut that overall rate by 10%. So that might just be cutting out the takeout or cutting out whatever it is, depending on where you are. But it gets harder when you have to cut more.
It does,
So
and especially if you have children too.
yes, yeah, there's some things that you can't cut, obviously. I did this last week. I was doing a spending fast kind of with my community group. And I'm like, okay, for this is just for 3 days. I'm not going to spend anything extra besides, any essentials. And I had gotten down to like we are out of laundry soap or something. I'm like, oh, whatever. And my 10-year-old son was like, can you please buy laundry soap? I want to wash my clothes. I'm like, good call.
Spoken by a true 10-year-old boy.
The first time he ever wants to wash his clothes, by the
Of
way.
course. You're trying to budget and then he decides to go ahead and throw his 2 cents
he's,
in.
he's
That's
like,
that's so children.
yeah. But another area, so I think one thing that sometimes we overlook that's like a quick win that's
Yeah.
helpful that y'all can do right now, like pull out your phone under your Apple settings, it'll show your subscriptions,
Hmm.
see what's under there. Because sometimes you'll just, and I do this all the time, like I'll click on it and oh, I'll get rid of that or forget it or not even realize you clicked on it. And maybe it's $3 a month, maybe, but why are you giving $3 a month away that you're not using? Or maybe it's $30. That's a quick one. And then, all your subscriptions, when you go through your bank account, cut them. Or another one that's big right now is call your insurance.
Hmm.
Um, Insurance has gone up and down on both health and if you own your house, property insurance, but you can usually get a deal when you call in. So little things like that to give you quick wins helps when you're getting started too.
Well, that subscription reminds me. I actually did that a couple months ago. I was sitting, I don't know, I'm researching something on my phone and I thought, man, I haven't checked on my subscriptions in my account for very long. And I went on there and I'm like, I'm still paying for Hinge?
Yeah,
What the heck is this?
I I realized that too with Bumble, and I hadn't used it in a couple of years, and I'm like,
Same.
oh, and that means my profile's probably still on there, and I don't
Same.
want it
And
to
I'm
be.
like, what the heck? I probably have like 300 likes and all
Yeah,
these comments just sitting in my inbox because I thought I deleted it, but apparently my subscription status is telling me I didn't.
yeah, it's probably still live.
So, no, that's a really good point because those are little things that I think in our day to day we forget about.
Yeah, that's easy to. And when it's not a huge amount, like if you had a $500 a month subscription, you probably
Right,
notice it.
right,
But
right.
those little ones, and it's so easy nowadays to just click it and be like, oh, I'll cancel it, or oh, it's just a little bit. But if you're not using it, cut it. Just be more aware. Even if you have a really high salary, great. but you still need to take control of all the small pieces and know where your finances are going so that you can optimize that margin you have,
Right.
funnel as much as you can into your investments and get yourself on a path to financial freedom.
Well, and one little suggestion I would give to the audience too, and you can give me your 2 cents because this is your, wheelhouse. This isn't mine. But I also like to look at it as too, even though I'm not a quote unquote single mom and I'm a divorced mom, I don't like to rely on the child support. I like to plan for a day that maybe, God forbid, something happens and I'm no longer receiving child support, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm no longer receiving that cush secondary, third income. So
Right.
I don't even like to bring that into the mix when I'm
Mm-mm.
budgeting or I'm planning. I like to look at strictly what I'm making, what's mine, what I'm covering, and what I'm bringing to the table, and base it strictly off that instead of basing it off the little extras that come with a divorce. Because in my mind, those are just, extras or
Mm-hmm.
icing on the cake. But at the end of the day, I don't like to rely on that as considering that as income. Would
No,
you
I think
agree?
I think that's super smart. And I've told a lot of my friends and
Hey Xies, it's your girl Lauren, and I just am here to say I appreciate all the love and support. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe so that the podcast can provide you with more valuable and meaningful work to support you on your journey.